Real quick, we in parts 1 and 2, we talked about proper capacities. We talked about police officers acting in a representative capacity, taking and removing the garb of the state, the law enforcer garb, and basically becoming mere individuals as opposed to being in a representative capacity. There is a difference. We need to know that difference. That is very vital and very important. If you do not know and understand the difference, this will perpetually put you in a state of subjection. You will not know which way is up, and you will not know which way is down. And so you don't want to be there. I don't want you there. And so I've taken it upon myself to help pull my fellow men and women out of the miry muck and clay, the murky waters. Okay. And so with that being said, this is part 3. Hopefully you've seen part 1 and part 2. These are very vital, very important, hard-hitting information that is pretty much unparalleled on any other channel. With that being said, I said that this one would be about raising the proper court. What does that mean? What do I mean by raising the proper court? By raising the proper court, all right, the court is for what reason and what purpose? All right, the judicial branch was designed by the founding fathers to be the interpreter of the law. The law, by that reference, I mean the enactments of the legislature. Okay, that is the law. That is the part of the American law system. Each state has a legislature, and they are tasked with creating the laws. And then you have the judiciary branch, which is tasked with interpreting, not rewriting, not creating new policy on top of what the legislature has enacted. Okay, each of the 3 branches of government are meant to be separate and distinct at all times, and never to be commingled. All right, and so with that being said, the court, raising the proper court, has to do with raising the proper venue, or participating in the proper venue, discussing the proper subject matter, and establishing jurisdiction over the, how shall I say it, the plaintiff, the defendant, the participants, the parties to the action. And so it is important that whoever is bringing the claim, the cause of action, or what have you, whether it be, and we're going to discuss this at length, whether it be a suit in equity, all right, that is one side, or an action at law, or in law, an action at law. They are not one and the same. All right. If you know anything about the history, I have gone over this in the past, of the court system. At one particular point in time, there were 2 separate and distinct court systems, as it were. One, the court, the law court, or the court of law, and the courts of equity. All right, the courts of law and courts of equity. And if you did not agree with the ruling, the holdings of the king, and you felt that it was too strict and too harsh, you could basically appeal to the courts of equity, and the court of the chancellor, or whatever, the court of chancery, I believe it was called at one point in time, would try to find an equal balance, an equitable balance, a more fair outcome. Okay, and so those are your 2 courts: courts of law and courts of equity. All right, what has essentially happened, I believe, don't quote me at it, you can look it up for yourself, I believe they were merged, I want to say 1935. That might be way off, but you can definitely fact check it, look it up. Okay, don't quote me at it once again. But the point being is that they were merged. It might have been 1871. It might be 1871. But look into it for yourself. But I digress. The courts were merged is the point, meaning the courts of equity and the courts of law became one cause of action, or one action, the civil action. And essentially, or if you recall, in trust law, there are 2 titles. Go figure. Same, right? There's the legal title, just like there's the courts of law. Legal, okay? And then you have the equitable title, okay? So there's legal title and equitable title. A legal title is control, all right? And control and ownership. And then equitable title is beneficial interest in property, okay? You can benefit, the interest in property is due to the benefactor, excuse me. And so same thing with the courts. There's the courts of law and the courts of equity, right? Courts, the legal courts, courts of equity, whatever. And so there subsequently was a convergence of the two, the courts of law and courts of equity, and then now again you have the civil action, okay? And the one action, civil action. And so this is what took place in history, all right? And so now you could go to one place, one venue, one court, and in that one court, you have two options. What are they? Two types of action. An action at law or in law, at law, in law, and a suit in equity. At one time, a little bit of a history lesson, these were separate courts, okay? The equity court was more of a fair remedy after the law being strict and stringent was laid down. Okay, so if you didn't like the decision of the king, you had a secondary recourse of action, and that was in the courts of equity. All right, fairness or equality. All right, and so raising the proper court is everything, and this is something that we all, including myself, have failed to do, failed to realize with realize. And so that's why, though you stand there on your square, as it were, and you aver and declare your individual liberties, more times than not, in these legal jurisdictions, you are ignored. It seems as if, you are being overrun and overtaken by a tyrannical system. Okay, but alas, we merely were not privy to the separation of the courts, the different courts. Now, I will say this, that the courts of equity and the courts of law have now been merged into what's known as a single action, all right, or a civil action, all right, so that now you can go into one court and you can bring a suit in equity or an action at law or a claim in law or what have you. Okay? In one court now, I hope that you are picking up what I'm putting down. You are able to bring both a suit in equity and an action at law. Okay? Because the two courts have become one. Now, if you've been paying attention to the other two parts of this series, when you come into the court, if you just default and think that, default to or think that you can just walk in, just walk in arbitrarily and start to aver and declare individual rights, it does not work like that. Because first of all, as a citizen, you voluntarily waive your individual liberties. Why? Because Black's Law 5th edition lets you know that a citizen is a subject status. That means that you are under someone else's power and control, right? And so therefore you have to ask yourself, well, whose power and control am I under as the citizen? Well, ask yourself another question. What state do you, quote unquote, belong to? What state do you owe allegiance to? Well, that becomes your God. That becomes your Father, okay? And so that is the plight of a quote-unquote citizen. So you can't come in as a citizen and aver and declare individual rights when being a citizen is actually, in accordance once again with Black's Law, 5th edition, is in a particular capacity, is acting in a particular capacity. Yes, acting as in a Shakespearean play or on Broadway. They are actors acting a part, right, in the play. And that's what a citizen is. An actor playing a particular part in the societal play. That's what is going on. That's why it is said that the world is a stage. That's exactly why. Because we are all actors. That's why state actors wear uniforms, right? Who wears uniforms? Do you wear a uniform? Right. Probably if you work in the public sector, correct? Because they want you to be in one form. Uni means one. So uniform. They want you to be in one form. Why? So that the client or the customer can identify you and say, okay, this is a representative of the particular company that I have hired to do a particular job. Okay? And a lot of times people will be like, you know, I need some identification before I allow you to come into my house to do work. And so to deal with that situation, what businesses often will require is that you wear their uniform, that you have an identification badge on, right? So that way that the customer can feel less threatened, can know that you are there for a particular purpose and that you are acting in a professional manner, okay? And so it is no different, all right, for a citizen, okay? Your birth certificate identifies the state in which you were born. It identifies the rights that you have as relates to the state that you were born in. All right. Every state is not the same. All right. Some states may allow a younger age to participate in society for a particular reason. All right. There are variations, although for the most part, because we joined a union or there was a unionization, there is a federal law in the Constitution which helps to bring about some, for the most part, uniformity. So even if the statutes may vary a little bit from one state to the other, there still can be somewhat of a form of uniformity, if that makes sense, including the dollar system, the currency system, right? Because otherwise, if Illinois does not recognize and honor currency of Wisconsin, then there can't really be trade. It'll be hard to have contracts and trade between the two states, if you get what I'm, if you're picking up what I'm putting down. And so with that being said, the citizen cannot arbitrarily aver individual liberties holistically. They can't, because why? Because you are representing the state in which you reside as a resident, right? You are representing that state. And so therefore, if you can live or reside in a particular state and have no liability as a citizen of that state, then it would be no holds barred. All right, there would be no controlling of you. There would be no organization, right? You'd be able to do whatever the heck you want to, right? And so we can't necessarily have that, right? We got to have some kind of organization, therefore, hence a society, right? A community. You know, we're all working together. That's the way it was meant to be, all right? As far as organized government of men, okay? Governments of men. Now, so once again, a citizen can't just arbitrarily just come into the courts and start averring their individual liberties and rights, because in order to participate in the society, in the community, you had to waive some of those so that the government that you elect would have some type of control over you to keep you in line to a certain extent. All right. Now, however, the individual, okay, your individual liberties, which can't be converted, right, into crimes or what have you, right? You have certain unalienable individual liberties, okay, which the first 10 amendments of the Constitution were designed to protect, all right? Because there is a dichotomy. There is the participation and the functionality within what's known as trade and commerce. Everybody has that right to participate in commerce and trade so that you can feed your family, so that you can create profit, right? So that you can pay taxes to contribute to the society in which you live. And so since everybody has that right to do that, now let me just say this: 24 hours a day, you may not be participating in commerce and trade, right? You may, as a police officer, I've used it as a demonstration before. A police officer, when off duty, takes off the uniform, the badge, and the gun, and now is acting in an individual capacity, no longer acting in a representative capacity. Again, look at the dichotomy, or look at the two, right? The legal title versus the equitable title. And so the police officer takes off the uniform and therefore is now considered in an individual capacity. And that is different, separate and distinct from a representative capacity. Okay, so you got to know the difference. All right, raising the proper court, again, is the topic. And until you learn how to do that, when you try to raise or bring a cause of action in the court without raising the proper court, they're going to look at you as if, well, I should say, they're going to gauge your competency by how much you know, or how much you act in accordance with each of those titles. All right. Otherwise, you'll be considered legally incompetent, and they'll be like, well, we strongly suggest and urge you to retain yourself an attorney, one who knows the law, knows the ins and outs of our legal system. All right, because if you are coming in here once again and claiming individual liberties, then you better be raising the court of equity. There, I said it. All right, if you are coming in declaring your civil, political rights as a citizen, then this is a legal cause of action. This is a action in law. Now, in order to raise the equitable court, the action or the suit must be in personam. You have to be averring and declaring your individual rights, because remember, there's a difference between your individual capacity and your representative or representative capacity. In personam is the proper capacity to come in a court of equity. You cannot raise an equitable claim any other way. It must be in personam. Look it up. Okay? If someone violates a state statute and you want to hold them accountable, that's an action at law. Okay? Because it's a violation of the state statute. Now, if someone causes personal injury to you, to you as an individual, right? There's a corpus delicti, meaning there's an injured individual, or your property has been damaged, right? So you come raising a suit in equity, averring and declaring your individual liberties have been affected, that you have been deprived of your unalienable right, okay? Rights that cannot be taken away. That's a suit in equity, in personam. It's the only way to bring an equitable claim. I hope that you have picked up what I put down here on this part 3. This is very important. We have not been playing the game, as it were, the correct way. And that's why we have not been experiencing more wins and remedy. All right, so I've taken it upon myself, as many of you know, to properly educate the people, right, so that we can realize that remedy. And this is the way it works. All right? You don't believe me? Challenge me. We can chat it out. We can work it out. All right? Raise the proper court. Okay? And the only way to do that is to understand the difference. There's always two considerations: equity and law. Legal title and equitable title. Okay? There's always two considerations, because all is trust. That's why on the dollar it says, "In God we trust." The founding fathers. This whole experience and experiment is all in trust. Okay, that's what the saying on the dollar really means. In God we trust. Okay, so when you get an understanding of what's really going on, when you understand that bifurcation of the titles creates a trust, and the subsequent joining of those titles, merging those titles together, the legal and equitable title, essentially dissolves a trust. Okay? When you learn the history involving the two courts that have now been joined together, the two titles have become one. In effect, dissolving the trust, creating one type of action, the civil action. Okay? So hopefully you're able to comprehend what I've laid down here. If you have any questions, the information on how to contact is usually in the description of these videos. You can look through parts 1, 2, and now 3. I'm not sure if there needs to be a part 4. If you can take what I've given you in these 3, you should, without question, be on your yellow brick road to your remedy. All right, with that being said, I'll see you next time. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. All right, hit that thumbs up button. Show appreciation, and we'll continue to put down and, pick people up. Put down great information and pick people up. All right, we'll see you next time. Courtney signing out.